Welcome. My name is Bernadette O'Rourke, and I'm the Extension Youth Livestock Specialist. And we are super pleased to start off Beef Month, May 1st today, with an opportunity for you all to see some beef farms, research farms that Wisconsin has at our fingertips to utilize here in this great state. So I'm just going to give a few tips here, and then we're going to get started with our tour today. You should see a poll on your screen here that we'd love for you to enter in answers. If you could, there's like 5 questions. Some are pretty fun. You know, what have you been doing during this time of quarantine? Those that have kind of started out already or have answered the poll have given us that they've worked with their animals or enjoyed being around animals, and I think we would all tend to agree with that. Some of you put your favorite animal, so with no surprise, beef cattle's kind of ranging to the top. And then many of you are in the 4-H program, and some of you are in FFA, so that's great. And then the other is, what state are you from? So many of you are from Wisconsin, and if you're not from Wisconsin, if you could put the state in the chat box, that would be great. So some are saying the poll will not let me submit, so I'm not sure. Others are still entering in, so there might be something on your end that the poll is not allowing you to submit, but it's still going on this end for some to submit. So please don't hesitate to go ahead and do that. And we're going to end that poll here in a little bit. We'll give you a few minutes. So while you're doing that, we're going to just announce and kind of introduce our speakers for today. Firstly, we have Arin Crooks. Arin Crooks is with the Lancaster Research Station, and we're grateful for his involvement. He, and as well as Caleb Karls, who is the unit manager up in Arlington. And we're going to show you a few slides here, kind of where they are located in the state. But firstly, I just wanted to reach out and tell them thank you for helping lead this effort. I've also asked Amanda Cauffman. Amanda Cauffman is with the Division of Extension, and she is an agricultural educator in Grant County, Wisconsin. So in the southwest region, or southwest part of the state, definitely really close to our Lancaster Research Station. And not only because of her professional position, she also interned at this Lancaster station for maybe 1 or more years. I'm not quite sure. Certainly 1 year, but I think there's kind of a family lineage there, as Amber, Amanda's sister, is there at the unit today helping as well conduct this. So we're grateful for all those folks involved. I am going to end the poll and move us over to the PowerPoint that I have here queued up, and I'm going to let Arin, who put this together, and we really felt it was good to just kind of go through the research stations and why they're important, and then we'll move right into looking at the cattle and what's going on at the station. So Arin, if you want to, I'm going to share my screen here and get the PowerPoint ready, and if you want to jump in and start, that'd be great. Yep, so go ahead, Arin, when you're ready. The first screen is just a picture of the Lancaster station, the nice, beautiful terraces and that part. I don't know if you can see that or not.
No, I'm not seeing it up on the screen. Maybe it's just me, or is others seeing it?
It's on the screen.
Amanda, can you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, so we're good to go, I think, on this end. Maybe just where you're seeing on your phone, Arin, it might be limiting. But I can just tell you what I'm showing and to prompt you. The next station is the locations. Sure. Do you want to talk about the locations, Arin?
Sure. Well, as you can see from that first slide, that we've got a lot of hills and valleys at Lancaster here. We're located in the southwest corner of the station, or of the state, excuse me. And if you got the map up, you can see that Madison is kind of in South Central, and Arlington, where the other units, the swine and the sheep unit are, and where Kayla will be at a little north of Arlington, and then southwest corner and the bottom left is Lancaster. So there's a special name for that southwest region of Wisconsin. And if anybody knows what our kind of nickname for our region is, that's located not only in southwest Wisconsin, but also southeast Minnesota, northwest Wisconsin, or excuse me, northwest Illinois and northeast Iowa. You guys can fire that in. I see a few of them coming in at the bottom of my screen, so we're seeing that. But so just to give you a reference, we're about 2 hours southwest of Arlington and about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes southwest of Madison. So we're in, like I said, real hilly, lots of hills and valleys and steep areas where we have to have pasture and forages. So that's what makes the livestock such an important part for us down here, especially cow-calf versus other areas like Arlington or places where you can do a lot more rural cropping with corn and soybeans and things like that. So Bernie, you can flip, I guess on that screen there, if you see there's 12 different locations that are actually part of the UW Research Station system, but they're spread out across the state. So if we go to the next slide, so this is the colorful one, has a bunch of different pictures or different colors for different groups of soil types. So that kind of gives you an explanation of why it's beneficial to have 12 different research stations, is because we've got a lot of different soil types, and this state of Wisconsin is very broad and diverse. So by having different research stations in different areas, we can specialize in different things. And even when we do the same things, whether how we grow corn in the southwest corner versus up at Spooner or at Hancock or Marshfield is different than how Arlington and all others do it. So it gives us the ability for repeat and make useful information for everybody across the state. So the next slide, if Bernie, you can advance. You can see a little bit of history, another aerial shot of the station, but we started 1963, so a little over 50 years ago. And we were joint with the federal government, with USDA and their ag research service. And our whole principle was conserving soil and the steep terrains of this area. So that answer to our poll or little trivia question was the driftless region that some got. That's kind of our nickname for this area. And I'm not sure if it's really known why, but in the last ice age, the glaciers split and spread and didn't cover this area along the Mississippi River, kind of from Eau Claire, La Crosse on down through where we're at into Illinois and Iowa a little bit. And that caused us to have these hilly terrains and more streams and spring-fed little creeks and things like that makes it so good for livestock. So, but we still have interest in not only from Wisconsin for us here, but also Iowa and Illinois and even southeast Minnesota. So next slide, Bernie. So this one should have pictures of cows in a pasture and then kind of corn and hay and other fields behind it there. So we've got 30 different research projects that go on annually. That increases and decreases year to year, but that's more or less about how many we have. And a lot of those are crop type projects. So corn, soybeans, alfalfa, small grains, you name it. And some of that's actually on the plants, like a variety trial, and some of it's like soil fertility or how kind of tillage that you do, all different things like that. And our total land area, and then the other remaining projects are more related to the cattle. So they're more intensive projects. So we might have 6 to 8 different cattle projects, and some of those are genetics or reproduction or nutrition, and some are pasture related. So we're actually using the cows to harvest the pasture and see how they have an effect on the plant species, the grasses or clovers or whatever it might be in the pasture. So the total land area for the station, we're about 530 acres. So we're a lot smaller than Arlington. Arlington is over 2,000 acres and has lots of different animals. So our specialty is crops and beef cattle and grazing and a little bit of conservation type things, wildlife type things every once in a while. So, but of our 530 acres, we have 220 acres of crops. I kind of talked about some of the different crops we had, and about 200 acres of pasture that we rotationally graze. So the next slide can give you a little appreciation. If you've been in this area, you know that in steep areas, lots of times farmers will have a lot of narrow, long, winding fields that kind of wrap around the hillside. So that's contour strips is what they're called. So that helps keep the corn rows and things going not up and down the hills, so that saves the erosion. And then for us also, we'll alternate between strips. It's in that map, the different colors are different crops. So yellow is corn, blue is soybeans, and kind of I think the greenish colors are some of the hay fields, and then the natural green areas, those are the pastures. But anyway, you can see all the different little numbers of the fields, and our biggest field is 6 acres, so we've got lots of teeny tiny fields, but we alternate. So when we plant soybeans or corn, there's some alfalfa strips or hayfield strips that are in between that helps conserve. So if we get a big rain, it doesn't wash down the hillsides. All right, next slide, Bernie. So that's a picture of our crew. We've got, I'm the manager here, and I've got a beef background and a degree, master's and bachelor's from UW-Madison. And then we've got some of our other crew that work with us. They've got bachelor's, some have tech school degrees, short course degrees, and even some that just have high school degrees. So we have 6 full-time people, and then we have some part-time people that are in there, as well as annually we typically have about three summer college interns that help us out. So next slide. We've got pictures of the cows and the cattle herd. So we're here for a beef tour. So we've got 120 head of cows, mostly commercial Angus. There's a little bit of Hereford and Simmental and some other things, but mainly Angus and black cows. We calve in spring, so our heifers start April 1st, and the cows start about April 20th. So we're out in the pastures where the cows calve now. So we've had a little over 50 calves, and I think we had about 40 calves in about 2 weeks. So we've been pretty busy lately. And then also we'll have our replacement heifers and the bulls to help clean up breeding. We do AI and embryo transfer. And as I said before, there are lots of different areas that we do research projects on. So if we flip to the next slide, there's just some examples of some of the different work that we do. The one is top left is ultrasounding for pregnancy. There's drawing some blood samples, and then taking some cattle weights and doing, as I said, some embryo transfer and AI repro work. And we can flip to the next slide, Bernie. So with the grazing research, we'll test out different species and types of grass or clovers that we can graze. Some of it conventional, like normal stuff we think of, and sometimes we do really different stuff, like we'll graze sorghum sudan grass or even corn plants before it's headed out. And also sometimes we'll have projects where we feed the cattle different grain along with the pasture to see how that affects their gains. And we can flip to the next slide. We'll go through the crop research. That there's a bunch of different, some little tools that are kind of hand plots, small areas like your garden, and other areas that are big fields. Some equipment is familiar that you'd see, and some are kind of unique and specialized. So you can flip to the next slide there, Bernie. You can see there's corn and there's cover crops in the bottom left, and in the bottom right is a pollinator for the bees, that different grasses and flowers that we planted to see how that helps with the maintain the honeybees. In the top right are those marshmallow bales that are baleage, high moisture, big round and square bales. We did different research with that to see how best they can be used for farmers. And you can flip to the next slide, Bernie. The crop rotation study, that's a unique study here that looks at different crop rotations. So whether you do corn continuously or corn and soybeans or mix in alfalfa, and how, but that project, most research projects are only 2 or 3 years long. That one's been going over 50 years now. So that started shortly after the station. So that's kind of unique. That's the second oldest study like that in the country. So that's one of our noteworthy projects that we've worked on. So we flip to the next slide.
We have a question in the chat. How many feeder calves do you sell a year?
Sure. So we'll have 120 cows or shortly thereof, and it depends on the project. So first criteria is that we meet the research needs that we have, and some of those, if they're on site here at Lancaster, or sometimes we ship some of our calves up to Arlington to the feedlot that you'll see here in a little bit. But usually we'll sell 50 or 60 in the fall, late fall, early winter. and then we'll keep back our replacements, and if we have special projects, we'll ship to another Arlington for other projects. But in that 50 to 60 range on a normal year. So any other questions, Amanda?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, thanks. And then the field days. So we have public events where we'll have adults, farmers come in, or maybe classes and tours and field days. That's just some different pictures, the ones that we had there. And sometimes we do out stuff in the field, and we're in our office or in kind of a classroom. And we always work a lot with Amanda and the other extension people to have those events and share the information that we have with everyone. So, and our last slide, if anyone has an interest, I talked about our internships. We have typically 3 summer ones. We'll have a couple that work with the cattle and 1 crops related one. We have 1 position, SWTC, a Southwest Wisconsin Technical College. And then we have another couple of students that are internships that are open for other students. So that's kind of a quick background on us here. And we've got a calf ready that we've got Ryan, our herdsman, and Amber that's a part-time, was an intern and helping work part-time. They're going to go through and show what we got. This little calf here. Oh, let me get my video turned around. If you can give me the screen, Bernie. She was born last night, or yesterday afternoon, excuse me. So it's not even a day old. So her mom behind here, if you can see, is pretty calm and quiet. The mom is a Hereford Angus cross. So Herefords are red with white faces, and Angus are solid black. And the dad was an AI sired calf, artificial insemination. So it was an Angus. So even though the mom's got white on her forehead, the calf is all black. So, but this is something that we do with every calf that's born. So first we iodine the navel after they're born. The navel is where it was attached to its mom inside the body. And then you can hear him beller a little bit, moo. He's given a shot of selenium. That's BOCI, that helps to fight off white muscle disease that newborn calves can get in our area. And they get an ear tag. And when they first did it, we saw that they had a little skin notch they took out for a DNA test. So with our research, they take DNA samples of all the calves. So, and next here, they're going to put the calf on. We'll see how much he weighs. So if you want to put your guesses in quick, you can try. And we'll come over here. I don't know if we had anybody that guessed about 80 pounds, but that's right about where it's at. And it's a little heifer calf. So she was actually due about a week from now. So she was a week early, but that's the whole process. And they'll put it in with the mom here. So if you look on the tags here, you can see we get special ear tags made. Well, now the mama cow turned away from us, but there's a bucky that we have printed on the tag. That way, if any of the neighbors, we get a cow out or something, they can know. And then if you notice on the tags, maybe I'll grab another spare tag here to show you. But there's a letter on the tag, and there's actually a system with beef cows that they use 22 of the 26 letters of the alphabet. So that letter signifies the year that they were born. So H is 2000 and 20 that we're here now. And this mama cow, if anybody want to wager guesses, I'll try to walk around here and catch up to him. Any ideas on how old the cow might be? If you can do good math and count your letters, her number is S57. So if we're getting any, Bernie or Amanda, is anybody getting guesses coming in?
Yep, we have a few guesses. We have 2016, 2000, 4 years, in 2016.
Yeah, so she may not look like it, but this cow is actually 14 years old. So she was born in 2006. So she's had lots of calves before. So this is nothing new to her. She's had lots of calves. So she's getting about as old, normally 15 15 or 16 years old is kind of as old as we keep the cows. They can live longer than that, but be able to raise a calf and do a good job and take care of themselves. She's one of our older cows, but obviously she's pretty good at her job, and that's why she's gotten to keep on and help with everything or do everything. So I don't know if you can see here. I'll give you a walk a little bit, and then we'll hop on the ATV or UTV here so we can see some of the other baby calves. But so these cows this is the pasture. We moved them out yesterday to this pasture, and they're all due within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that was the first baby that was born in this group, and we've had about 50 calves total. But the grass is growing, and they love to eat grass, and that's the benefit of the cows. They can eat grass and on pasture, but it's just not growing quite fast enough yet. It will be soon. So we're feeding hay, and we feed the hay out on the ground in different places every day, and they may waste a little bit versus using a feeder, but this helps spread all the nutrients out from where the cows go to the bathroom and where the leftover hay is, and we help keep from having any mud if we get rainy weather, and mud can be really bad because that can get on the cow's udder, and then if the calves nurse the cows with the mud, they can get diarrhea or scours as we call it, and that can be hard, and baby calves can even die from that. So, but anyway, we'll hop on the mule here. I'll get Amber to be my driver, and we'll go look at some of the other baby calves. But maybe Amanda, you want to go through, help me out with, so we're cow calf and we do some grazing here, but kind of the different segments of the beef industry and what some of the different farmers do.
Yep, I can do that. First, I'm going to go ahead and answer a question that we have in the chat, though. Someone asked what is gestation, or what is gestation length? And basically, what gestation length is it's the time from when that cow is bred until she has her calf. And we have some very good guesses in the chat. But that average length of time is typically around 283 days. So good guesses, everybody. And then as far as talking about what Arin had asked, as far as the different parts of the beef industry. So the part that Arin just showed us was the cow-calf section of the beef industry. We also have stockers, and we have feedlot. And as we go throughout today and throughout the tour, we'll be able to see the different components of each of those. So while Arin is on the move, we also have some fun facts for you. The first one being that the United States and Brazil are the top beef producing countries in the world. Does anybody have any guesses of which state in the United States has the most cow calves or has the most cows? All right, we have some guesses coming in. We'll let some more filter in before we give out the answer.
There's some good guesses coming in there, Amanda.
There are some very good guesses.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we kind of got it. We can still take in questions and answer the questions. So just to update you, we're going through. So this is some of the younger calves that we've got there. Oh, let's see. They're probably anywhere from 2 or 3 days up to maybe 2 weeks old. So one other thing I didn't talk about with the calves, we start every year. So each year has a different letter. And then we start with 001 every year, number 1 for the calf, and then we go up from there. So we can always look at the calf and see if it's a low number, it was born earlier in that year. And if it was a higher number, once we get up to 100 or 120, then that's the oldest, the youngest last born calves. So, but we'll drive on through and see the other big group of calves. But you guys can finish your poll questions and share with what the top state is.
So the top state that, as far as number of cows or beef cows, is Texas. So anybody who guessed Texas, good job. In the state of Wisconsin, in Grant County, which is where the Lancaster Research Station is located, actually is the #1 producer within the state of beef cow numbers. So that's kind of a fun little fact of Grant County and the Lancaster Research Station.
And isn't it in combination too, Amanda, that if you live in Iowa County or Crawford County, like that whole kind of Southwest where there's a number of counties, are the counties that have the most cows of the whole state of Wisconsin, and beef cows in particular, correct?
Exactly. And that's going back to when Arin was talking about that Southwest Wisconsin is the driftless region. Since we have a lot of this really hilly topography, a lot of the ground that we have around here is best suited for running cow-calf pairs on them. We really have a hard time cropping them because they're so steep of hills.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys. So we're in the pasture with some of their older cows and calves, and you'll see we talked a little bit about Angus and Hereford, and then you can see that most of our cows are black. We've got one solid red one over there that has some red Angus in her. So Angus can come in black or red. Black is the most common, but the sire or the dad of these calves, like I said, they were AI sired. 3 different bulls that we used to breed all these cows. So let me see. So if you see that cow that's licking on her side, just turned her head away from us, her first letter of her tag is F. So she's a first-time mom. So our first-time moms, it's very important that it's harder for them to have their first baby, just like in humans or any other species. So we pick special bull for that.
Arin, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Yep.
That's known to have a really small birth weight differences. Oh, higher. All right. So we'll move here if you can hear me, guys.
So the research station, we've gotten some questions in as far as does the research station have bulls? You talked a little bit about AIing. The research station does have some cleanup bulls, but they are predominantly trying to AI for certain research projects.
Yep, we're part of it. Can you hear me now at all, or is it about the same?
You're better.
Yep, better.
Okay. Yep, sorry about that. So that's the one thing about Southwest Wisconsin and all these hills, our cell reception can be spotty. So our project that the cows are with right now is a genetics project. So there's a researcher in Madison that is looking at different, a gene that increases the amount of twins, which beef cows normally have just one baby. But sometimes they have, will have twins just like humans do. But this gene that these cows can get from this herd that he found in New Zealand, all the way from New Zealand, increases the number of number of sets of twins they can have. So in certain instances, if the farmer can take care of them, that's good. And they're also looking at there's other ways that other stuff such as if we do embryo transfer, use them as surrogate mothers, or other type things, if that can be a benefit. So but that's the project that these cows are working with. And the researcher looks at different things like how to do a test to find the gene and what different changes it made in the cow's body to have produce twins more than normal cows would. But and sometimes the cows actually are part of 2 different projects. We had not these cows, but that first group that we looked at, they were part of a nutritional project. So we were feeding them different types of forage, different kinds of hay from different plants to see if they were able to do just as well on some different ones versus other high quality forage The alfalfa, and they could do. So is there any other chat questions that's come in, Amanda?
Yeah, so we have a question that says, and this is a feedlot question, but do cattle grade Herefords and Angus, are Hereford and Angus graded on the same scale when they go to market? I believe is what they meant to ask.
Sure. Yep. So cattle are graded first. All animals that are graded and butchered and turned into meat, they're all inspected to see how safe they are. That's the mandate by the government, that so the meat is safe and people are healthy and no problems from that. So then usually what we think of grade is actually quality grade. So Herefords, Angus, all of them are on the same scale for quality grade, and that's optional in beef, and that's choice and prime and select and things like that. So what people hear and recognize a lot is when you say certified Angus beef, that's a special brand name of beef, and it has certain criteria that it has to meet. But you'll see that in the meat case in the grocery store or other places or restaurants advertise that, and that's a kind of a special above and beyond. And actually they're certified Hereford beef, and there's all LARS, lean, all different kinds of programs and different breeds and other criteria. But as far as choice and all the quality grades, any breed can be graded and get those type. Angus is known for a higher quality meat versus some of our other breeds. So typically we think of those because they have more marbling, which is the intramuscular fat. That's what helps give meat its flavor and juiciness when we cook it or grill it or however you want to do with it. So but we've got lots of so Angus tend to have a higher level of that, so they typically grade more choice and prime, where some other breeds may not be quite as high, that don't have quite as much marbling. But so I think I saw a question if I was right about show steers. So nope, these cows aren't any show steers. There's a lot of 4-H and FFA kids. We've got show steers that show, but so these are all used for research and go into a normal seed lot and get produced. So not that you couldn't show one at the fair, but typically we don't produce any show steers here.
And then another question we have is, how often do you experience twins?
So out of 100, and this year I think we got about 110. Like I said, normally we try to shoot for about 120. We're down a little bit. We'll have anywhere between probably 2 and 5 sets of twins. Last year I think we had 5, and this year I think we're expected to have 2. So after we breed the cows later in the summer, we will use ultrasound, and the veterinarian will come down and preg check the cows, determine how far along they're bred and when their due dates are, so we can better manage them. So they can, with ultrasound, they can detect the calves, or how many calves, the date, and whether they have twins. And even they can tell at the right stage between like 60 and 80 days, they can tell, just like in humans, what if it's going to be a bull calf or a heifer. So.
All right. And then another question that we have
ahead of us here is number 6. So that was, oh, go ahead.
What EPDs do you focus on?
Well, like I said, for our heifers, we focus on the birth weight and calving ease, are 2 of the primary ones, because we want them to have a live calf. We also want them to grow well and have good carcass traits, but that's probably secondary to be that heifer having a good calf, or easy time giving birth and not having too much difficulty or having problems that way. So on our other cows, with the research part of it, their genetics of if they carry that gene for the twinning is primary. And then we look at growth, less focus on birth weight for the older cows, because they tend to have less problems having their babies. So with the older cows, out of probably 100 cows, older cows that we calve, so if we have 120 cows, typically we have about 20 replacements or first-time moms, first calf heifers that are 2 years old. That's when the first time that they calve. And then the 100 older cows, we may only have 2 or maybe 3 that we have to help. The cows, beef cows, are kind of like the outdoorsmen of the livestock world. They like to be outside and be independent and on their own. They don't need a lot of help. So most of the time, a beef cow will be able to have her calf on her own and not need much assistance, and it's pretty self-sufficient. But every once in a while, if the calf ends up is backwards instead of coming head first, or maybe if there's a leg down or the head isn't coming forward right, if it's tipped down or tipped back, then we have to come in and help, and we need a chute, and like we're up there in that corral, the help get them in. So that's why a couple of those pastures are good for us, because that corral is close and we have that chute. So if we need to help or pen one separate, we have that ability.
All right.
But
Arin, can you move on and talk about the weaning process?
Sure. We'll cover that quick because I know we're kind of running a little long on time here, and I want to cut Caleb out. So weaning. So these calves, if you want to put it in the chat, do you know how old a beef calf is normally when we'd wean a calf? You can say in months or in days, but so they'll see some 6 weeks, 8 weeks, little longer than that, 4 months. That's getting closer. Usually 5 to 7 months is kind of 7 months used to be the standard. Now sometimes it's 5 or 6 months, but in that range. So if they're born in the spring towards fall, we'll separate the calves from their moms, and by then they'll be 500 or 600 pounds. But it's a stressful time. If you think the first day that as kids that you went to school and had to leave mom and dad, or were farther away, if you go off to college or move out of home, that's traumatic. That's a big change, and it's no different than for the cows. So to prepare them for that stress of being separated from mom, that's a process that we take a while doing. So we'll give them vaccinations, just like we get our flu shot and flu vaccination. We'll give them other shots for respiratory, so they don't get pneumonia and things like that. And then another couple shots for other diseases, and we'll deworm them so they don't have any parasites to make them sick either. Then actually in those pastures that we were up there, Bernie, would you be able to flip up one of those pictures that I had? We won't go through them all, but we can flip up one of those pictures if we can get it brought up and you can see. But when we use a process called fence line weeding, so you can see there's that same windmill. They were up there before. So when we separate the calves from the cows, excuse me, we'll have the calves on one side of the fence and the cows on the other. So you think it might be more stressful that they can see each other and not get together, but it's actually less stressful. So, but we've weaned that way a long time, and that actually helps the calves, because our calves, some farmers will creep feed, where they'll give grain in a separate little pen while the calves are nursing the cows. So they can get used to eating some grain, because the young calves will need grain where the old cows, their moms, do not. But we don't do that because it doesn't work with our management system very well. They just eat grass with the cows. So you can see that calf in the front, he's bawling, he's missing his mom. So that's a sign of when they're stressed, is that they they might bail or walk the fence and try to find a way to get back to mom. But when we wean out there in the pasture, they're used to eating grass, so they're able to eat grass while they learn how to eat grain out of a bunk and eat different stuff. And we do those other process. The first vaccination shots we give are like 3 or 4 weeks before we wean, so they have a chance to build up immunity. And then we can go from there. So there's a picture of them with let the grass grow up tall so they can eat grass. So they're still not kind of starving, learn how to eat new feed. They're more comfortable eating their old feed. So, but that's a few week process. And once they get eaten on their own, then we can feed them specialized feeds so they can grow faster and do better. So with that, I think we'll switch, and maybe we can send it up to Caleb at Arlington. He can show you what a feedlot's kind of like and some things up there.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah,
all
you're
right.
good, Caleb.
Yep, we got you. Go ahead, Caleb.
Sounds good. Welcome to Arlington. Now, we just took about a half-hour or 2-hour drive in about 2 seconds. So we are in the main feedlot barn that we have here. So the cattle, when they come in from the right, and we sort them into different pens. And so primarily what we do here is research. And so each pen is labeled with a number. And we have these pens on the south side of the barn that will house about 6 head per pen. You can see how big it is. It's actually more than the needed space per head. And then we also have some individual pens on the north side, if you can see those numbers on the wall. These individual pens we don't use very often, but sometimes we have some specialized projects where we want to see what an individual cow or calf or heifer or bull, or there's a lot of different types of projects that we do. And we want to see what they'll eat and what they'll do when they're by themselves. This is the oldest bull that we have here. Like Arin down in Lancaster, we do have some cows. Those cows are at a different farm about a mile from where I am now. So we keep the bull and the cows separate until breeding season. But like Arin down in Lancaster, we do mostly AI, so artificial insemination. And we use a bull after we do 1 round of AI, and when they come back into heat, and then we let him do the cleanup. So if you want to take a guess about how much the bull weighs, I'll give you an idea. The average bulls will weigh between 1,500 to well over 2,000, probably 2,200 pounds is kind of a good average, depending on breed and their genetics. So this is primarily Angus bull. He is a purebred Angus bull. He also has a bucky tag. He's pretty tame, and he's pretty easy to work with, and he weighs about 1,850. So again, give you an idea of how big he is. We'll walk down the barn a little bit further.
So Caleb,
These are 2 yearling bulls. Yep.
Oh, go ahead. You go, continue. Thank you.
Okay. These are 2 yearling bulls, so it gives you an idea. That other bull was about, I think he's 4 years old now. So he's at mature size, and these guys are about a year old, and they're not quite to the size that he is, obviously. As we walk down the barn, we don't have a lot of cattle here right now, because a little differently than the other research farms, like the pig farm and the sheep farm and down by Arin, we don't necessarily have a full herd here all the time. We typically get cattle in for a project, and then we do that project, which usually deals with growing cattle, cattle nutrition while they're growing, or some other projects that we do with grazing and grazing trials as the cattle are growing as well. So we use those cattle for a period of time, and then we sell them. And oftentimes what we're looking at is how much the cattle are gaining per day. So we weigh the cattle often, and we calculate how much they're gaining per day, and we see what the different treatments we're giving the cattle as far as different feeds or other treatments. And we can use that information to make recommendations to farmers as well as science in general. And so at the end of the day, the cattle that we have here and that we're raising are for the meat quality and their consumption of meat for human consumption. And so the cattle, when they do leave here, they get quality graded, like you have already talked about once earlier in the meeting. And we look at the different quality grades as well and the carcass quality to see what the different treatments that we're giving these animals, how that affects their meat quality. And so, as you know, we are in Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, I think a lot of people might have thought we do have a lot of cows here, but not necessarily beef cows. A lot of our cows in Wisconsin are dairy cattle. or dairy cows. And when dairy cows have a bull, those bulls cannot be milked. So typically they will become feeder animals for beef. And so these are actually heifers, but these heifer Holsteins were used for a grazing project, and the grazing project is done. And so now we have them here, and we're feeding them out for finishing. So different sections of the beef industry, like we've talked about, are the cow-calf, so producing the calves. And then we also have people that do stocker, as it's called, and those people grow the cattle for a certain period of time. And when the cattle get to such a weight, those cattle then will enter a feed yard or a feedlot scenario where they'll get fed a higher energy diet and put on meat as well as fat condition. And so to discuss a little bit about what these cattle are eating, all the cattle here now, besides the bulls, are on a finishing diet. So if you look at the bunk, the cattle have their water in their pen. They're bedded with sawdust, actually. And we bed with sawdust because it's very absorbent, but it's also not wanted, not very nutritious or not desirable to the cattle. So when we're doing a nutrition trial, we don't want the cattle to be eating a lot of their bedding. So if you have cattle out on grass, they'll be eating the grass as well as whatever treatment you're trying to give them. So that's why we have them inside, and we have them bedded with sawdust because they don't want to eat that. But it's a very good bedding and very comfortable for them. As you can see, they're all very clean, and really wondering what I'm doing and who I'm talking to. But this is their feed that we're feeding them right now. Hopefully you can see that okay. It's a mixture, so kind of like a casserole, if you want to think of that, or a salad that people eat. This is similar. So what we do is we mix it every day and we feed the cattle. And so primarily the ingredients in this diet is corn silage, dry distillers grains, and a mineral or a vitamin supplement. So we add all those ingredients at different weights or different amounts, and we mix it in a mixer, and then we feed it out. And those cattle eat it, and we let them eat it for a day, and then at the beginning of the next day, we will then, so this is our feed room that we mix the feed in. So there's different bins outside, and they're coming inside, and we use these feed carts to mix it. So our farm is pretty small compared to many you probably will see driving around, or if you live on a farm. So we don't have a big tractor and a mixer. We have small mixing carts, but they're very accurate on how much they'll weigh. So we want to use these when we're doing research, so we're as accurate as possible. And the feed will mix in the mixer, and we mix it, and then we put it into the bunk. These are some different ingredients that we're using right now. This is a chopped hay. So we use a tub grinder, and we chop up the hay so we can mix it all together. This is a haylage, so it's a kind of like a pickle, if you want to think of it that way. It's a fermented hay. So we put this hay into silos, and then it ferments because it's a high moisture, and the cattle just love it because of its taste. And it's also very nutritious. This is corn silage, which is a very good feed, and it's a very good quality, high energy forage. It's also like haylage, where it's fermented. This is dry distillers grains, it's called. So dry distillers grains is a byproduct of the ethanol process. So when you take a whole kernel corn and you make ethanol with it, one byproduct is distillers Distillers is a very good feed because it's high in protein. So it's a very good way that we can use a byproduct of one industry and feed cattle and make them healthy. This is cracked corn. So it doesn't look like a whole piece of corn because it's been all cracked up, and it has a lot of powder and different fines. We do that to the corn to make it more digestible. So this is just the rest of our feed room. These are harvester silos, it's called, and we typically will put corn in there and feed it out that way. And then we also have stave silos, which are larger concrete silos that are very common in Wisconsin as you drive around. But actually in other states, they're not very common at all if you get out and travel that way. Is there any questions?
Yep, so we just have, so there's one that says, the one that you showed us before the corn, why is it yellow?
It's yellow because it's very concentrated and it's like corn. It's a product of corn, so it's yellow like a kernel of corn. The reason why the cracked corn is quite white, if you look at it, is because it's only the inside of the corn. So where the distiller's grains has more of the outside as well. So this is a piece of corn. So if you can see, it's pretty similar to that distiller's grain color. But then the inside of the corn kernel is white. And so that's starch. So it's kind of like a potato, if you want to think of it that way. Potatoes are high in starch as well, and they're white inside. But that is what, when you crack it, you open up all that starch and you make that available for the cattle to get at. The outside of a corn kernel is hard, especially when it's dry. So if you think of that, it's not very easily digested to animals. So that's why we crack it up and feed it that way. These are our other cattle. So in total, there's 24 pens this size. So pens that we can put 6 head in. The total feedlot here, we can have 220 head. Our other farm is a grazing farm, which we won't go there today, but we have about 35 cows there. And we calve those, and they just started calving actually just recently. So just started doing that. We're a little bit behind Arin, but those cows are similar with Arin's project, same researcher, but they're a little bit more to the UW-Madison campus, as we are in Arlington, and we are close for the students to come and work. So when we do projects like weaning, different vaccinations that we do, weighing cattle, breeding, ultrasounding, preg checking the cows, a lot of times we'll have students out here to help us do that, and so they can learn as well as give us a hand. Is there any other questions we should answer?
Someone asked if we feed the cows hay.
Yeah, so the cows, we do feed hay at the other farm. Those, typically what we try to do is have a more of a mixed diet though, and hay is a component. And when we do that, the cattle all their requirements are met. And where I'm going right now is a load out. So this is, not every farm has this, but our farm, we often load in and out of semis to move the cattle around. And so this is the path that a steer or a heifer might take when they come in and out of our farm. So cattle, when you move cattle, you want them to be very calm, and you want to be calm around them, and you want them to feel comfortable. So that's why the sides are solid, and they're relatively close together. So when they walk through, they feel feel close together. They can see each other. They follow each other through this area. So it's a very good technique and a good design that way. We'll just go inside. Inside of our working area is also another alleyway similar to the other one where the cattle come in and they go around. This is called a horseshoe type system. So we're actually inside, there's a heater there. So it's nice that we can work the cattle inside, and what we do here is we weigh the cattle. So this is a cattle squeeze chute, it's called. The cattle will come in and their head will be right here when they're inside of the squeeze chute. This squeeze chute, yep.
Oh, Caleb, I was just going to say, so if any of you guys have heard of Temple Grandin, in the last 20 years, that's been a big advancement for handling cattle, because cattle are prey animals, which means out in the wild, they were the ones that were hunted, versus like dogs or coyotes or wolves or mountain lions or even humans. We were predator animals, so we did the hunting. So, but Temple Grandin is a college professor and a researcher, and she was very good at understanding how cows interpret things. So the solid sides and things like that makes the cows feel more comfortable. And even the squeeze part of the chute, when you can kind of like being wrapped up in a tight blanket, can make them feel better and more calm. So farmers do a lot of things to keep the cow calm and try to do things so it's comfortable for them while we're handling to give their medicine shots or vaccinations or weighing or things like that.
Yep. So what I'm doing now is I just put a steer into the squeeze chute. These levers up here will operate the squeeze chute, and I'll open it and shut it when I pull the levers. And so this steer, if you guys saw him outside, he's actually 1,400 pounds. So he's getting close to market size. So if you want to look at him again, he's 1,400. So one advantage that we have here at the farm is we are able to weigh our cattle, so we get a good idea of what the weight is and what the cattle look like when they are that weight. So it can be very hard to judge animals on their weight, just because there's a lot of factors that go into that. So this one, like Arin has down by him, is probably a Hereford Angus with his white face. And is there any other questions?
So I want to throw out a question for you guys. Does anybody know in the chat, type in if you know what the letters BQA stands for? It's an abbreviation.
Yeah.
Somebody type out what that is. Do you know what BQA stands for? Yep, there I see it. Beef Quality Assurance. Good job, Tammy. And there's some others that probably had the right answer too. So, yeah, that's an educational program that producers can take. And there's Youth or YQCA is a youth program that maybe you guys have heard of well, that 4-H and FFA kids can take. But that helps train producers, so we're doing the best job we can to do that low stress handling of the animals and giving shots in the neck area where it's the least quality of meat, so we don't hurt any of the other meat in the animal, and do the best things we can for the animal, feeding quality feeds and making sure when we transport the animals with the truck and trailer or a semi that we don't hurt the animals, do anything. So that's a program. Pork has pork quality assurance, and there's others too. But it's important to help make sure the consumers, the people that buy our meat and our products in the store, that they're comfortable with what we do and that we're doing the best job taking care of our animals, and they know that we're well trained in how to do things the best that we can.
Okay, thanks for that, Arin. Caleb, was there anything else you wanted to share up in Arlington as we kind of round up the session here and head back to Arin?
No, I think that covers it pretty good. It's a good introductory of what we have here. And if anyone's interested in the future, just feel free to reach out to us, and be happy to have different 4-H or.
All right, thanks, Caleb. You did a great job,
Okay.
or Caleb, and thanks again for being with us today. And again, as Caleb said, make sure you look him up. Arlington does give a lot of student tours for middle school youth, so don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to change our spotlight and head back to Arin, and he's going to finish us up for the day. So take it away, Arin.
Sure. And to echo what Caleb said, that we also have our welcome visitors, and normal times maybe we're not able to do it right now with our stay-at-home orders, but other times feel free to reach out, and we give in-person class trips and tours to individuals and other things. So please reach out and contact us as well. So if you're in the Lancaster, Southwest Wisconsin area. So these guys, I was just going to show you, these are last year's calves. So that's how fast they can grow in a year. Caleb had some of those that were a year old too. So these were some of the calves born out of those same cows we were looking at last year. So they get fed a TMR ration just like Caleb had, only they're outside. Here's their mix, as you can tell, versus what Caleb had. They're a little more haylage and corn silage, and a little less corn because we're growing them, versus the high grain diet to fatten them out, because there's the heifers that'll be the future cows, as well as some other steers that were in that stocker they talked about. We're growing them out, and they'll go into the feedlot this summer. And but this area here is a what they call a feedlot mound. So there's cement here right along where the calves are standing and come up to eat, and then there's a dirt mound in the middle. So you'll find this a lot out west in like Kansas and Nebraska, or down in Texas and Oklahoma. So but the cattle can go up on that mound and find a dry place to lay, or if it's a little bit windy, they can go on the backside. But just another way that probably more common in other areas of the country than what you'd find here. Anyway, we appreciate you all coming out today. We got a friendly one right up front here saying goodbye to you, but thanks for coming out and taking part. And Bernie, do you have anything else that you want to cover before we're done?
Sure, just a few things I threw in the chat. Make sure you fill out a survey. I'll be sending an email following up here pretty much right away after we're done tonight. So please fill that out. That helps us plan future programs and put new things and opportunities for you to take part in. So please go ahead and do that. Those of you who are part of like youth projects that might be looking for some educational credits or those types of things, I put a link to that, where if you go to the virtual farm tour site page on the website, there's an educational form there that you can download and fill out and turn in to your county fair folks. So go ahead and do that, and that'll also be part of the email that I send to you following the tour today. And then lastly, just announcing our next tour in the series of virtual farm tours. It's next Friday, May 8th at 1 o'clock, and we're going to be touring the Farm Center up in Arlington. So we're going to learn a little bit more about what they do related to the feed mill. We'll get to see the feed mill in action that's located at the headquarters in Arlington, which is, if you were on the sheep and swine tour, and even with Caleb today, it's basically a mile from all of those locations. So please join us next week for that. The neat thing about that, I think you'll get to see, hopefully there's lots of planting going on of crops. There's lots of test plots, so you'll get to hear from a researcher that's doing a research project, test plot equipment such as planters and other things that are unique to what we do at UW-Madison and research farms. So make time in your schedule next week. All of these tours are recorded, and you can review them at a later time or share with your other friends and schoolmates and those sorts of things. So lastly, I just really want to appreciate and thank Amanda for helping navigate the chat, Arin and Caleb for taking time out of their day to share all the good things that's going on in the beef industry. And it's always fun to see it in person rather than just seeing pictures or hearing about it. So all the staff at both Lancaster and Arlington, we appreciate the time you invested in sharing with all of us today. So I'll just leave it. Amanda, do you have any last words to share on the extension side of things related to what's going on in the beef industry?
I do, but there is one question on where they can find the recording if they came in late that I want to make sure we covered.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know that. Yeah, that link I put in the chat, and also the one you'll get in your email. There is the link to the virtual farm tour link. There is the recording, when available, will be located there. So if you go to that website, this extension.wis.edu Youth Livestock, and it's called Virtual Farm Tours, that will have all of the recordings. There's lots of activities. So there's like coloring pages and art projects and other things that you can engage in too while you're hanging out at home or doing some of those things that are more closely occupied in your own home. So they're there. Please utilize them. The beef one will be probably available early next week, Monday or Tuesday, and then the swine one and the sheep one are already up there. Okay. Any others, Amanda? Or is that it?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thanks. Oh, go ahead, Arin.
No, I just want to echo thanks too to Amanda and Wells Bernie for helping put this together and let us share and allow all of you in the public there to come visit us when we can't get out and see very much. It's been a nice set of videos and tours for people to have something to do on a Friday afternoon. So thanks for all your hard work too.
All right. Well, thanks for those signing off words, Arin. Have a wonderful afternoon and weekend, everyone. All the best, and looking forward to seeing you when we can see each other. Take care.